Welcome to everyone who has joined us. We are very happy about the huge number of participants we have for this event, which also shows, of course, that this is a topic and to panelists that spark a lot of interest. So a very warm welcome from my side and from our side. I will tell you a little bit about Reinvent Law, and then we will jump directly to the topic why you're all here for. And we'll learn a lot of exciting things about AI in legal and what is actually possible out there. So a few words about Reinvent Law. Reinvent Law is a legal innovation hub based in Frankfurt, and we have been based from the very start on three pillars, so to speak: people, processes, and tech. People, because with lawyers, and I'm a lawyer myself, so I can speak quite freely about this, you have to start at a very, very early stage a lot of times. So have to tell lawyers a lot of times that you can do a lot of things in a different way and can start to think about certain things in a very new way, of course. Then processes, because a lot of the change that we see out there in legal innovation is actually processes based. So this is not the fancy AI stuff that we will talk about today as well, but this is more like the groundwork. And then, of course, tech, because there are a lot of tech solutions out there which make things easier, cheaper, more secure, less complicated, and so on. But it's important that you talk about these things in this very particular order, because if you don't do that, then you end up where a lot of firms and companies are seeing themselves right now, that they haven't really appealed to the minds of people. So people are saying, okay, we have this fancy new tool there, but I won't use it because it doesn't really affect me, or they don't have the certain processes in place to make use of that tool in a very effective way. So it's very important that you, whenever you think about the topic of legal innovation, you think about these three steps. What we set out to do from the very start is that we wanted to build an ecosystem around the whole topic of legal innovation. And this is what our ecosystem looks like right now. We have four main areas, so to speak. So we have the firm side, where we have one exclusive member and founding member as well. Then we have the corporate side, where we have the corporate firms of Bosch, Daimler, ING, and ZF. We have Wolters Kluwer on board as a so-called knowledge partner. We have two legal tech ventures which are based in our hub, Leximo and Brighter. And we have right now, I think, 14 legal tech ventures which are so-called community members. So they are not based in our hub, but they are very tightly woven into the whole system. One of these community members is the one who is also hosting this event with us today, Legartis from Switzerland. And then we have very close collaborations to a lot of students from all over Germany. So we can present a very complete picture of the whole innovation system in legal. And we set out from the very start to say, okay, stop talking, start doing, because if you look at legal innovation, there are a lot of people and lawyers, of course, especially who say, okay, this is all very fancy stuff and I would like to dig into this, and then they return to their normal course of what they have been focusing on for the last 20 or 30 years, and nothing actually changes. So our ecosystem is working in a really great way. As you can see here, each of these yellow lines represents an actual project, an actual product that was conceived within the ecosystem. So you can see that this is a very active community already, and this is only the very start. So today we will talk about artificial intelligence in legal and how ZF Group automates the contract review process. Now, automation is a very important topic when you think about all things considered. We see a lot of things going on in the automation space, in all large firms, in all corporates as well. So this is a topic that sparks your huge interest, which we can see, of course, from the large number of people who are in this event today as well. So I'm very excited to hear from our two panelists from their actual experiences and how their use case looks like. So I would like to welcome Martin Kai, who is Vice President Legal and Compliance Officer at ZF Group, and David Bloch, who is CEO and co-founder of Legartis, one of the community members here at Reinvent Law, and ZF, of course, one of the founding members as well of Reinvent Law. So without much further ado, I will now hand over the mics, so to say. Of course, I would also love to hear from all you people out there what your thoughts are and what, of course, your questions are when it comes to that topic. So we will have a Q&A session afterwards, and you can post your questions throughout the time right now. So I would love to hear from you, and we will try to answer as many questions afterwards as possible. Of course, you can post your questions in English or German as you want to. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Firstly, I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Martin. I'm very happy to be here today with you, but maybe you want to say a couple of words about yourself.
Thank you, David and Daniel. Quick introduction of myself. My name is Martin Kai. I'm working with ZF 12 years now. ZF, for those who don't know, the company is an automotive supplier with approximately 35 billion turnover and 150,000 employees worldwide. I'm working in the legal department with various assignments, one of which is being part of the team that looks out for technical solutions that help to address the needs in our department. That's all for now. I'm excited to be here this afternoon and look forward to the conversation. Daniel?
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for that introduction, Martin. And I'm really happy to be here today and to tell our audience the story about the collaboration between Legartis and ZF. Quickly about myself, my name is David. I'm one of the 4 co-founders of Legartis. Legartis was founded in 2017 by 2 lawyers, one software engineer and one computational linguist. Today, the company has around 35 employees with offices in Zurich and Lisbon, and offers a solution that helps corporates as well as law firms when doing contract review. I'm sure that a lot of you are excited to learn more about Legartis and especially about our product. And that's why I really want to kick it off with exactly that. I would like to show you what we do. Today, Legartis' sweet spot is the automated review of not yet signed contracts. A solution combines good functionalities, helpful process-oriented functionalities with our in-house developed AI. This very AI, we know that it can be applied as well to use cases in the space of post-signing of contracts. Nevertheless, Legartis today focuses primarily on the review of not yet signed contracts, and that's exactly what I want to show you right now. I'm going to switch as the next step to our dashboard, right into the application browser. I'm in my browser. This is my dashboard. And as a first step, actually, I'm going to have a look at my contract playbook. Now, what is the contract playbook? The contract playbook is where a company in a company in general, the legal department, in a lot of cases as well, law firms for smaller companies define company policies. So in other words, it is defined what's required in a contract, what's unacceptable, what's optional, what's a risky clause. There is the possibility to store instructions, and last but not least, to define standard wording. What you see here is summarized is the place where the policies, the rules for the review are defined. So this has nothing, we're not just yet in the actual review of a contract. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up my playbook. Typically, we do see that the setup of the playbook takes place at the very beginning during the onboarding, and that's a very quick and easy thing to do. Once the know-how, the context is actually there, the content is actually there, to implement that is a thing of a couple of minutes, top an hour. So a very easy process to do. What you see is my playbook, and I'm focusing today in this presentation on non-disclosure agreements. To mention that at this point, non-disclosure agreements is not the only contract type that we can actually review, but more in that regard later. What I'm going to do is I'm going to define a couple of rules for this live demo. The first thing which I'm going to change is liquidated damages. We see that liquidated damages at the moment defined as optional. That means it is optional for this contract type to contain this clause. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change it to unacceptable because from the point of view of Legartis, this contract type cannot contain such a clause. We don't want this. And that's exactly what I'm going to define by saving this. In the next step, I'm going to change a couple of things under dispute settlement. We see that I already predefined arbitration procedure as well as place of arbitration as unacceptable provisions. At the same time, I predefined jurisdiction to be required. The very same thing I want to do now with governing law. I'm going to change this from optional to required. So I'm defining that this is mandatory for this contract type because it needs to be contained in a non-disclosure agreement. Good. Once that's done, I'm going to scroll down, and I'm getting to a functionality that we call clause checkpoint. Clause checkpoints we introduced pretty new at the end of last year due to two reasons. Firstly, to define risky clauses, and secondly, to determine if a clause to allow to analyze a specific clause in more detail. What does that mean? In order to determine if a clause is acceptable, if it's okay or not, from time to time there is further information required. In order to allow to check for that information, we introduced the checkpoint. This is going to be automated as well, especially when it comes to geospatial, temporal, or numerical entities. So geospatial, numerical, or temporal information, but as well other information. And that, in order to automate that there, we want to have the feedback from the market. So once we see that there is a demand from the market, we're going to train the machine, we're going to train our AI, and this is being automated. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to define such a checkpoint here. I'm going to add a text for that. which is saying, please verify that the governing law is Swiss law. In exceptional cases, we also accept the law of any EU country. In all other cases, the contract must be approved by the legal department. A very clear instruction for a person that needs to review an NDA. Scrolling down, I'm going to come to the clause definition. This clause definition was used by our legal team when they were training our AI. So all our AI was trained in-house. This is the way how we guarantee that the AI meets a certain level of quality. Regarding the review instructions, I'm going to get to that once we're in the actual review. And then suggested text, that's the standard wording. I'm going to add that as well, just in case in a contract, a governing law clause is missing. I can add that in English. I can add that in German. And I'll save this. Wait. Oh, this is not ideal. I wasn't logged in. I'm quickly gonna add this again. Sorry for that. So you see that this is actually on live and not just a video. Okay. This is saved and the liquidated damages is saved as well. And scrolling down, you see that we have added some other or predefined some other rules before. And by scrolling down, I'm going to get to come to a section that is called clauses without AI assistance. What is that? We realized by speaking to our to the market, to our customers, that there are very industry-specific requirements or even company-specific requirements to a contract review. In order to allow a full review with the assistance of Legartis, we introduced that very same functionality, because there are, from time to time, topics where we don't just yet have an AI in place. Such a topic can be bank secrecy, very specific, especially to the financial institutions here in Switzerland, but all over the world. I'm going to add a clause checkpoint, which is basically saying what the person reviewing the contract needs to search for, because we don't have an AI just in place, but we are providing the instructions, the assistance, and as well the checkpoint. And we're adding as well a standard wording in case this topic wouldn't be in an NDA found. Saving this, and my work for the time being here on the contract playbook is done. I defined a couple of things in my contract playbook, and I'm moving on to the actual review. We offer today the whole solution right in Microsoft Word. We realized with the feedback from ZF that we needed to bring our solution to the actual user. So to allow the review to take place in the used working environment of the business world, and that's Microsoft Word. I'm logging into my Word add-in. Okay, and I analyze the document. What happens now? The document is being uploaded to the cloud. The AI analyzes first the language. So is it in German? Is it in English? Is it in another language? We're the only solution out there that actually can handle more than one language at the same time. Then it identifies the document type, it identifies the contract type, and then it classifies every single sentence based on its legal meaning and matches all that with my policies. And as a result, I get clear instructions what I need to do on the document. I have 6 open tasks. I see that we have 5 things to modify. I'm going to open this and I'll start with the liquidated damages. You see that the solution jumped right away to the very specific sentence regarding liquidated damages. I get the instructions that according to my company policy, this clause cannot be accepted, and I'm being asked to remove the clause from my document. I'm turning on the track mode and I'll delete this and I reanalyze the document. The reanalysis is necessary because the AI understood that something changed in the document, but it needs to understand what actually changed in my document. So as a second thing, I'm going to jump to arbitration procedure. Again, the document jumps right to the very specific sentence and to the according sentence and tells me again that this is an unacceptable clause. I get the instruction to remove the clause. We see that there is as well the place of arbitration. I'm going to delete just both sentences to be a little bit more efficient, and I reanalyze the whole thing. And we have only 3 open tasks left. As a next thing, I'm going to open governing law. Here we have the instruction that this clause is missing. I get the instruction that this is required according to my company policies, and I'm being asked to add the suggested text. That's what I'm going to do. I copy by clicking here on this icon. I'll add this, and I reanalyze the document. You see now that we have one new to be verified. I'm just going to get to that. I'll add very quickly the jurisdiction as well. So to be modified, that's done. And now I'm going to come to the section to be verified. We see that there is a list of already completed tasks. These tasks were completed by Legartis. They were found, and there's no checkpoint to actually check on top. But we do have 2 open tasks left regarding governing law. The first one, the sentence is being highlighted, and I'm being asked to verify if the governing law is Swiss law. That's in this case the case, so I can check mark this checkpoint. As a next step, we have jurisdiction. Here, the very same thing. I'm being asked to check whether the place of jurisdiction is in Switzerland. That's the case. It's in Zurich, and so I can check mark this as well. I'm going to get back, and I see that I have only 1 open task left. That's the bank secrecy, a topic without the assistance of AI, but with the assistance of Legartis. I'm being asked to check if bank secrecy is in there. I can search for that topic. I can do that by simply use Control F. We're going to support that even in the future by allowing by having the machine searching for specific words, so to make our users' life easier in that regard as well. For the time being, I have to do that manually. Nevertheless, I do have all the instructions, I have the suggested text, and I can say I do know that's in there, so I check mark this checkpoint here. I go back and I see that all my tasks are done. Very quickly, that you see that it's not only working in English, but in German as well. A German document, or a document in German, you see that the analysis takes not even 10 seconds, and we do have a result for a German, a text, a document in German as well. All right. Enough about the solution. I hope you liked what you saw. Maybe Martin, what's your impression?
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm still impressed, even though I've seen it multiple times and I've used it myself. And in the meantime, I think you gave a very good idea of what Legartis software can do and how it looks like. I still think it's very user-friendly. But maybe we should also talk to the audience a little bit about our project setup. Why don't you move on and we have a look at that?
Yeah, love to do that. So what we did basically when we came together, we saw that you already had analyzed your initial situation. You asked yourself, what do we actually want to change? Then you asked yourself as well, how do we want to change this? That brought us basically together. And then you wanted to test that. That's what we did in a pilot phase. As a result of the pilot phase, we then saw that we received results. There were a lot of positive aspects. We received as well constructive, helpful feedback that allowed us then to adapt, to improve our solution, and then brought us basically to the implementation. That's how the transformation process worked on a high level. But maybe, Martin, tell us a little bit more about your initial situation in more detail.
Sure. I think our initial situation was at a high level pretty simple. We had a conflict between high workload on the one hand and cost pressure on the other hand, and we had a need to solve this conflict. High workload resulting from a large variety of contracts. The sheer number of agreements that run through the legal department is immense. That creates time pressure. You have to manage expectations. There's a certain degree of complexity in many agreements, and you're always striving for a very low human error rate, of course. On the other hand, you have the cost pressure, which is imminent to a competitive industry. You cannot just ask for additional headcount. The answer will be no. And if it's not no, you'll have to think various times on how to allocate the additional headcount. So we were really looking for a digital solution to solve this conflict. So we asked ourselves, how could such a solution look like? And honestly, at the beginning, we had no clue whatsoever. So we said, okay, we need to analyze our pain points. Where do we actually have inefficiencies? Where could we be more efficient with the implementation of a digital solution? And that's when we started.
So how did you actually do this analysis?
Yeah, I can talk to that. First of all, why am I emphasizing the analysis of the actual need? Because from my perspective, this is a very important step in the entire process for mainly 4 reasons. Legal tech is a dynamic market. There are many players out there. There's a lot of movement, new developments. There is nobody that will be able to tell you what you need. It has to be the other way around. You need to know your processes. You need to define the weaknesses, and ideally, you take into consideration the entire life cycle of your agreements, and thus define what you actually need. By the way, another important aspect of the internal analysis is if you do so, you may find inefficiencies internally that you can solve by yourself by simply reducing process steps by reducing the number of hands and heads that the document has to go through until it's finalized. And last but not least, you need a proper analysis in order to sell your idea internally, because eventually it's going to cost money, and someone will have to approve it, and they will have to have a good reasoning for that. So the analysis itself started with a very basic distinction between standard documents and non-standard documents. Basically, a non-standard is, per our definition, something that we regularly do in the legal department, but which is not really daily business. Take an M&A activity or a big license agreement, something like that. There are legal tech solutions for this as well, but we didn't see a really big leverage in pursuing those non-standard things. We saw the bigger leverage on the standard side and defined that for us as an internal process with standard templates, where we had a high volume of documents with a relatively lower complexity, with a lot of repetitive work that is done manually or by humans, and which requires a consistent level of review quality. So with these definitions of standard documents, we looked at our internal processes and looked which one met these criteria. When we did that, we found out that we had several possibilities for a pilot, and eventually decided that NDAs would probably give us the biggest leverage in terms of time saving, if we found a solution that helps us reducing review time of this high volume documentation. We then, with this finding, we then went out to the market and met with Legartis over a startup Autobahn event, I guess, had a couple of calls, and then decided that we should do a joint pilot. And maybe, David, you want to elaborate a little bit on how that pilot was structured?
Yeah, happy to do so. So when we met, basically, we saw that you had analyzed your initial situation, you had analyzed what you wanted to change, and that brought us basically to the part that you needed to test. You needed to test our solution in a process of, or in a duration of 5 weeks. In the first step, before even kicking it off, we defined metrics, what a successful pilot phase would mean. Then we kicked it off, defined as well the timeline. We introduced all pilot phase participants to Legartis. Then we did actually, in the second week, we gave access to everybody, for everybody to the solution. We did set up together and then we went into the actual testing. Over 2 weeks, we did 3 things. First, we allowed all users in their everyday work to test, to use the solution. Secondly, we did a performance experiment. Basically, we compared the review of NDAs done with Legartis versus the review of NDAs done without Legartis. And the second experiment, and so to speak, the third point, was then the risk detection experiment, where we, from Legartis side, we analyzed already signed NDAs and compared them with ZF's policies, ZF's playbook, and looking for deviations. And then that brought us then to the last week, where we together evaluated the whole test phase and came to the conclusion that there was a really good outcome of both experiments. The testing showed that the AI showed really good results. And at the same time, we received very constructive, helpful feedback from ZF, which basically said that there was the need to analyze clauses in more detail, and the possibility to edit a document once analyzed needed to be there as well. So 2 things that then basically had the effect that we went back, analyzed the whole situation, came up with 2 ways to solve this, sat down again with ZF, proposed, discussed both solutions, then decided to take one road, and then adapted the whole solution, improved the whole solution, and basically came back to ZF in order to implement.
Yeah, and I can say the entire pilot phase was really a good learning for both parties. Was a good teamwork, as you said, a lot of feedback, constructive discussions, and the speed of the implementation of what we gave you as a feedback and the speed of improvement of the product overall, that was really impressive. That was a good sign. It gave us a lot of trust that Legartis is a capable partner for this project.
Thanks, Martin. I'm really happy to hear that. But actually, talking about implementation, we do know today that there are really 2 sides of the same coin when it comes to implementation. On one hand, there is the need for a technical implementation in order to do well, to do this well. Startups like Legartis are really product market oriented. And for Legartis, this means basically 3 things. Firstly, yes, we want to deliver a tailored solution for one's everyday work. This means we're delivering today a solution that functions multilingual. Secondly, it works in Microsoft Word. It can handle any document format. And yes, today we're already delivering more than just NDAs. There are NDAs and there are DPAs. And actually triggered by customer demand, we're currently developing an AI which analyzes clauses or topics horizontally, so across many contract types. And this basically will increase the volume of contract types tremendously and our offering for our customers. Then the second point is definitely the flexible integration into processes. This needs to be easy and quick. And I did show you how it works with the contract playbook. And this is very customizable. But secondly, it's integrated easily. We do have REST APIs. And very importantly, when it comes to the AI, there's no training needed from a customer's point of view. That's really done in-house at Legartis. So we deliver an out-of-the-box solution. And then last but not least, especially for companies in the German-speaking region, reliable security with knowing that the data remains in Switzerland is definitely a key point when it comes to the technical implementation. But I guess, yeah, please, Martin.
I can only emphasize that the simple installation, the quick adaptation, the easy intuitive use, the reliability, all those are big assets. That's really part of a good solution. But to be honest, as you said at the beginning, the coin has 2 sides. There is also the cultural implementation that is necessary. Basically, the product, as good as it may be, it needs to fit into the organization, and the organization needs to be ready to use the product. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. So we're driving this internally with a state-of-the-art project set up to make sure we have the respective stakeholders on board and keep everybody informed, and try to calculate the savings that they want to hear. This is also part of the business case we created, because in the end, you will have to sell your idea internally to get approval for it. And last but not least, communication is key, as always. And I think it's really important to set the right mindset. And I'm convinced that such a legal tech project is not a one-time effort. It's a constant journey. It's a constant transformation towards digitalization, and Legartis is a helpful tool to accompany you through that journey. And that's how we try to communicate it as well to all the people who are involved. Try to set a positive mindset so that the people like to use it, that they're open for new things, for improvements. We tell them that it may not be flawless from the first day, but it will improve rapidly, as we learned during our pilot phase. And we also communicated internally that Legartis does not replace people. It gives lawyers flexibility as to how they want to spend their time, which is freed up by the software. And I think this is a big benefit. And we haven't started, we haven't finished the project yet. I think we just started a continuous co-improvement.
And I think that's a very important point, the continuous co-improvement, because what basically showed already the collaboration between ZF and Legartis, it is really based on a long-term relationship. And this means that improvement will take place continuously. Legartis will do a lot to do so. We're going to invest time when it comes to things like shadowing sessions or ideation sessions with users, with certain groups at ZF, in order to learn and especially to have the voice of the customers at all time in mind when further developing our solution.
Yeah, and as I said, we have found someone with the right and similar mindset there, and that's what we are trying to foster here in the company as well. And I think we are on a good path there.
Yeah, I so far very enjoyed the collaboration. So I think that's we still do have time for questions, and we're very much looking forward to all these questions from our audience.
So really great insights from the two of you. Thank you so much. I would maybe like to start off the Q&A session with a question from my side. What would be your three main takeaways from that project?
Please, Martin.
Yeah, well, as I said, I think takeaway number one is it's not a one-time effort, it's a continuous journey towards digitalization, and it needs to be accompanied by the right mindset. Second would be you need a thorough analysis and a convincing business case, otherwise you will probably have difficulty selling it internally. And yeah, last but not least, it was a great experience, and Legartis has a great team and a very good product, and it was a good experience for us.
For us, for Legartis, it's definitely understanding your customer well, to understand challenges, to understand processes, then be definitely open for constructive, helpful feedback in order to use that and improve quickly. And then last but not least, I'd say the two sides to the coin. So in order to implement well, there is a technical side, but there's a cultural side as well. Okay, cool. So first question might be directed to you, David, from Martin. Revisions must therefore be in simple markup mode so that the AI doesn't see the crossed out text. Is that right? Or so it can handle whatever version of track mode, but so basically it can handle a more complex mode as well. But in the end, in order that the AI can actually analyze something, yes, it needs to see the text somewhere, at least in the document. Okay. So next question is the Legartis solution always highly customized? That's a very good question. I like that very much. So when it comes to the AI, no. We are delivering a solution that has been trained already on thousands of documents. So it has seen a lot of different contracts, a lot of different provisions. But when it comes to the actual reviews, so setting up the policies, that's customizable to a customer's needs. There is as much customization as a customer actually wants.
Okay. Then the next question, maybe directed at the two of you. How long was the ZF pre-work phase? Did you have support by any facilitators guiding you through the analyzing and ideation phase?
I think we took a couple of weeks, but not working on it every day. Nobody does that in full time within our team. So we sat together once or twice a week, decided on the analysis, what we wanted to focus on, had a couple of calls to understand the processes. Yeah, would say a couple of weeks, not everyday work.
I can only add here, it was really impressive to see how ZF had already prepared. Of course, we did have some questions when we started the process together. We wanted to learn where they are, what they need, what they want to solve. But that was very impressive to see that pre-work they had done already.
Okay, then one question to David. How accurate is your AI solution? Can I, as a lawyer, rely 100% on it? Maybe I can add a certain comment on that, because as I said before that I'm a lawyer myself as well, and we as lawyers, we are trained especially in very high confidence, so that we are trained that lawyers never or rarely make any mistakes. So I think when you can compare the accuracy of any AI solution to the work of an actual lawyer, it's hard to compare, because if you look at your first year in any large law firm at 4 a.m. in the morning, I don't know what the kind of accuracy level is there then. So I would be, this is just my personal view, of course, I would be not so sure that your basis for your comparison is always 100%, so, but I leave the question up to you, David, of course.
But Daniel, thank you very much. I like the story, or I like the example. To give you a short answer, yes, you can rely on it. There is a certain process that guarantees a certain quality of the AI. So there are, first of all, parts where we analyze how good is the training data. So how well did our lawyers work? How much do they agree? Because the more they agree, the better. And I'm sorry, but if you have 4 lawyers in a room, and I'm myself a lawyer as well, 4 lawyers in a room, you definitely have 5 or 6 opinions. That actually matching of being of the same opinion, what is in a contract and what is not, that's the first step that we take. Then there comes machine learning, and that's where our machine learning experts come in. And then before actually releasing the AI to the customers, we do check again the results of the AI by a lawyer. What I described just here is just before releasing an AI. Once the AI is out there, there's no manual added work to be done by Legartis. It's really automated, and on that you definitely can rely.
Okay. One question for Martin. Who actually uses the tool at ZF? Is it lawyers in the legal department or also other departments?
Currently, it's used by the legal department only, but that means not only lawyers use it, but also trained paralegals or assistants can use it. The long-term picture definitely would be to have it also used outside the legal department, at least for defined cases.
Okay, so and that kind of brings me to the next question, which is kind of related to that. Is that have reliable solution in the sense that other departments using it can review and finalize the NDA and sign it ultimately without any involvement of the legal department? Is that the case in your organization, or is the legal department involved in any case? So.
Again, the long-term picture could definitely be a solution that does not involve the legal department at all.
Okay.
I mean, we're not signing ourselves. We don't necessarily have to sign off ourselves. That's going to be automated as well. So if there is nothing that pops up and requires legal department review, then it could happen in the long run. Yeah, we'll certainly take several steps and have measures to make sure that we don't make any faults there. But in the end, yes.
Okay. And one more question to Martin. I don't know how detailed you can provide an answer on that, but looking at the economics, what do you estimate your cost savings will be compared to the cost of the solution?
It's, first of all, a very valid question, and I hope that the savings are higher than the cost, because otherwise I failed with my business model. But that set aside, it's difficult to answer. We know about the costs, and we have methods to calculate the time we are saving. And then it a little bit in the end depends on how much you believe in the figures you used for that calculation. But on a high level, we're pretty confident that we will be able to gain efficiency and thus also eventually save money.
Okay.
And I guess there is one point to be added to that. What you get with actually using a solution like Legartis is not only efficiency gains, but it's actually the possibility to standardize certain processes to make sure that you apply the very same know-how in every single, let's say, NDA or contract review. So you can increase potentially your quality. You can make legal know-how accessible to the whole company. So you allow actually in the end, the legal department to do potentially more difficult tasks in the very same time. So there are a lot of other aspects or extra aspects to the value you're getting out of a solution like Legartis.
Okay. One more question for Martin. Apart from NDAs, are there any other type of contracts that you often deal with and that you are looking at right now as the next step, maybe?
Yes, there are, and yes, we do. So we're, for example, talking about purchasing agreements. So whenever we do procurement stuff, that are standard documents, where we also would see basically the same benefits that we saw with the NDAs, that are also suitable according to the definitions I made on a standard document. We're working on that on a current phase, actually. Yeah. And it could be many other more. I think that the prerequisite that you have to bring is that you have sort of a standardized process that is suitable for the automatization. If you don't have any standards, it's going to be very difficult. But whatever is standardized can be used, from my understanding, in principle.
Yeah. Okay. Then there are some questions regarding the tech behind all that, David. So can you give a little bit more insight into that? So for instance, the question was how you trained the AI before ZF, obviously, because you would have to present them with something that was working in some way at least.
Yes, so regarding the training, yeah, that happens here at Legartis. We have a team of lawyers as well as computational linguists. They work hand in hand. Our lawyers annotate, so label contracts on a daily basis. So they go through hundreds or even thousands of documents and annotate these in order then to aggregate high quality training material in order then to feed that to the machine. And yes, before we started with ZF, we already had a trained AI for NDAs at that point.
Okay. Then a question also directed at you, David. When applying the user's preferences, to what extent does the AI recognize cross-references and priority rulings, which may have an effect on the amended clauses or might be relevant for the interpretation thereof? And will the numbering in document automatically be amended or updated if a clause is deleted in its entirety?
Well, what you're referring to, especially the last point, that's in regards of the format in Microsoft Word, and that's still Microsoft Word doing that part. Our solution really provides an added value when it comes to the actual review of a contract.
Okay. So I'm looking at the question right now. I think we have answered most of the questions. Some questions were in a similar field. So maybe one more question for Martin. Is Legartis your first legal tech tool, or are you using also other tools in your organization?
We're working with other tools as well. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it. So once again, thank you to all the participants and to all the panelists. These were really great insights, and I am looking forward to our next discussion.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for having us. Thank you very much to the audience. And if you have more questions that haven't been answered just yet, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to jump on a call and answer these questions.